Hey everybody, Jake here with TrendSpider to go over the weekend video into the month of June. And this short week was quite a bit of chop. Really just some up days, some big down days, just really not a lot of direction. So we'll start with the S&P 500 ETF SPY and then go into some individual names after we go over a few other broad market indices. So starting with SPY, you can see here that we did actually break above this previous support zone. So initially it was green, then I made it red because we pretty much tested it and got rejected there, so that turned into resistance. And then we finally broke above it again. So this area below is now highlighted in green once again. And you can see here that we've really just traded in, a chop fest over the last 5 days. So, you've had literally some straight moves up and then just literally moves right back down from where you started. And then yesterday on Thursday, you had a big move up. And then today we've got just an inside day, not a ton of action. So the levels to watch would definitely be below this green zone from around 402 up to around 406. And then above this March 29th high VWAP right around 420 to 421. Now on the weekly chart, you can also see this previous area of support highlighted in green, now highlighted in red, is acting as resistance as well on the upside. So we really need to get above that 420 area. That is kind of the main zone that acted as support on the way down and then is proving to be a resistance zone on the way back up. So that is the S&P 500, but the Qs and IWM look very similar. So you can see here, same thing on the Qs where we had this previous support zone that we've talked about in multiple videos over the last several weeks and acted as resistance. Now we're back above it, so that's why it's highlighted in green. And you can see here that, once again, we just had a bunch of chop this week, not a lot of direction at all. So on the downside, you definitely want 300 to hold. On the upside, that March 29th high VWAP is right around 320 to 322. And remember, as time goes by, this VWAP changes. So just because it's 320 right now, it will change over time as price action evolves. So right now it's 320 to 322, but we'll see how that moves going into next week. Now on the weekly side of things, you can see here from the COVID low, we have the VWAP that is right in line with this previous area of support. So that this VWAP was essentially the support zone. So that's where we have this area highlighted in green. Then once we broke down through it, we've now highlighted this zone in red, and that's right in line with that COVID low VWAP. So right around 318, but all the way up to around 324 on the weekly side of things is really where you're going to have trouble getting above that area. And if we get above that area, that's when things get interesting on the bullish side once again. So upside, let's call it 318 all the way to about 324. Downside, you really want to hold the 300 level, which is a psychological level, but also this support zone on the daily chart. Now, IWM is also really having trouble getting through the COVID low VWAP. So if we turn that on here, you'll see that, well, on the daily chart, I need to add it again here. So you'll kind of see it better on the daily chart, but I have it on both charts here on the weekly as well. So you can see the last couple days, we just have not been able to get above this COVID low VWAP right around 188 to 189. And if we do get above that, you do have this descending diagonal resistance that goes up all the way to around 197. But remember, this is also a function of time. So the longer that it takes to get to this area, the lower that price is going to be as it's sloping downward. On the weekly chart, you can see that we just have these previous highs from 2018 and 2020, still your main level of support that really acted as support the last 3 weeks before this week. So you can see all these wicks really testing this area and then bouncing. And then you can see a little better with the COVID low VWAP really acting as resistance here for now. So if we can close above that, I would definitely be watching for 195 to 197 above. Going into Bitcoin, Bitcoin has just been really odd. It seems to be decoupling a little bit from the broad markets. And so you'll see here that we're still holding this horizontal level here from around 27.5, 27.6, all the way up to around 30. So really the 30K area is your psychological level that the price is holding on to now. But if we do close really below this previous low around 27.9, I think, that's when things may get interesting to the downside. just some weird price action. I mean, if you wanted to get creative and potentially make kind of like a bear flag here, but all in all, there's just really not a lot of rhyme or reason to Bitcoin's price moves in the last few weeks. Now on the weekly side, this is a great case study on the COVID low VWAP acting as a perfect level of resistance. So we've seen that on quite a few charts so far in this video. Once again, we bounced right off that COVID low VWAP this week, and you can see we're trading near the weekly lows going into the weekend as I do these videos on Friday. So all in all, we really need this, let's call it right around 27,500 to 27,750 to hold below, and then above that COVID low VWAP right around 32,700 to 33,000 is going to be your level once again to get above. Moving into some individual names, we haven't done SOFI in a while, so I figured let's look at SOFI, and this is pretty impressive how many times this thing has tested this resistance zone and just rejected off of it. Once again, over the last several days, we've been riding down along it pretty much since the start of this week, just kind of slowly grinding down along this line. And until we can break above it, that's your main level to watch. You do have a gap below right around 582 or so, 580. And if you add a VWAP from this previous low, you'll see here that you really want to hold around 660. And if we break that, then that gap would be something to keep in mind. And remember, you can always use the gap snake. So if you just go to indicators here, just type in gap, the gap snake will pop up. And you can see here, there's different ways that you can add it. The gap factor essentially looks at how big of a gap you want to look at. So 0.1 is going to be the smallest gaps you can find. So you can see here, if we do add the gap snake, we can see this gap below. The gap snake highlights it, and you can even put an alert on this area below if you do want to play the gap if it does continue to move down. So that's a nice automation tool on the platform that, especially if you're playing gaps and trading gaps, this is something you want to use. On the weekly chart, not a ton to really look at here. We can throw the volume by price on here and measure volume since this high. And you can see there's quite a bit of volume starting to aggregate down here shown by these volume nodes. But at the end of the day, you could also argue that you've got a potential bear flag forming here on the weekly. So all in all, these videos are really to show, different perspectives that you may have not seen. So there's a lot of different ways to look at any chart. So at least on the weekly for SOFI, the very rough looking bear flag would be a potential bear side of things. And then if you were more on the bull side of things, you could say that, there's quite a bit of volume aggregating here. Maybe a bottom is starting to form. But as always, price action will confirm which way we go from here. Moving on to SQ. Talk about bear flags, kind of another bear flag here on the daily chart. You can see here that we've got this diagonal resistance, support zone below, highlighted in green. So if we do break down through this flag, that would be an area to watch below, which is in the mid 50s. Seems crazy, but that's just kind of your level below. Not saying it has to get there, but if you were using this particular trend level zone, that would be your area below if we do really start to break down and break these lows around 65 or so. On the weekly chart, we're also getting pretty close to make or break around this diagonal support zone going all the way back to 2016. So you can see here that we have tested it a couple times over the last couple weeks. We're holding it above it for now. So that area, right around 75 to around 80 is going to be your main level on the downside to hold. And if not, things could get really interesting. If you anchor a VWAP from that low, that's pretty much the start of the trend. You can see that we're already below that as well. But we have moved below it in March of 2020 as well during COVID and moved right back up through it. So above, you definitely want to watch right around 95 to 96, which is that trend VWAP that starts way back here in 2016. Moving on to Microsoft. This one kind of spooked the market, and then on Thursday, all of a sudden it went green. So you can see here that we do have this falling wedge that did break out on Friday of last week, and you can see we've kind of been just trading right at this previous resistance that is now acting as a potential support zone. On Friday today, we did have an inside bar, so just not a lot of action. But I guess the good news for bulls is that we are holding this previous resistance, which is holding as support for now. On the weekly, we have this longer term trend that starts way back in 2018. You can see that we kind of have this flag type of setup appearing here. We're kind of at the end of the flag, and you can see that the end of the flag is right at this support zone. For now, we can call it a support zone because it has acted as support the last few weeks. But if we do break down below it, that's where you can just anchor a VWAP from the 2018 lows, and that that VWAP is way down here around let's just call it 210. And then you also have the COVID low VWAP that is right around this support zone, so right around 250. So we really want to hold 250 because you've got multiple different participants looking at this area. You've got trend zone followers watching this area below right around 250. You've got VWAP traders watching the COVID low VWAP right around 250 as well. So if that breaks, your next level to watch would be the 2018 low VWAP, which is way down in the low 200s. Moving on to Netflix. This one is just having some trouble getting above this earnings gap down VWAP. So if we anchor the volume by price from this high up here from April 4th, you'll see here that we do have the earnings gap down, and you always want to anchor VWAP from an important status quo changing event in the market. And the earnings gap down was definitely one of those. You'll see here that for now we are having trouble getting above it. We moved right up to it on Thursday. We do have an area where you don't have a lot of volume above. So if we can get above that earnings VWAP, that would potentially move us quickly up to this next level of supply, which is right around starting around 213.50 all the way up to around 220. So anytime you have the price below one of these volume nodes, we're going to call that supply because that's where shares are essentially holding at an unrealized loss. So once we get back up there, it's going to act as supply because people take some off the table. They get back to break even. They sell some. They sell their whole position, whatever the case is. It adds supply onto the market. Now, on the weekly side of things, you'll see here that we do have kind of this longer term trend zone that really just was able to be charted out. So you've got this initial point here in 2012. You've got this low here from early May. So, technically you do have a second point here from the early May low. So if we do break that, let's call it 165 around there, that's when things get really interesting because you're breaking this trend zone, you're breaking the previous low. So for now it's holding, but we will have to see how that plays out going into the next several weeks and into the rest of summer, midsummer. Tesla is the last one that we'll look at, and Tesla had a really big day this week, a really big day to the downside and upside. And if we remove the volume by price and just add this VWAP here, you'll see here that we did have a break above this resistance zone on Friday. And then you can see we're kind of riding along this resistance zone now, acting as a potential level of support. It did hold us support on Thursday, and then we got a pretty big bounce up to that April 21st high VWAP or close to it. And pretty much just gave all of those gains away on Friday. So we really want to hold this area, let's call it 675, or this whole support resistance flip, SR flip, is going to be invalidated. Now on the weekly side of things, we did kind of have a falling wedge that was set up from last week. We broke out through it at one point this week, and we're kind of right back where we started, or even below where we started the week. So all in all, you do have this resistance from April 18th, and that's pretty much the same. The week of April 18th, that's the same resistance zone that you have here. So all in all, this is just kind of charted out this resistance zone on the weekly as well, and you can see that we are kind of in that area for now. But all in all, the markets are definitely still looking a little iffy. I mean, this could easily just be a little bit of a dead cat bounce for new lows. Interest rates are still being talked about a lot, that inflation is still kind of out of control. The only way that we can maybe fix that is by raising rates, and the market generally does not like that. So all in all, we do have a lot of macro forces at work right now. It's not just technicals. You've got macro interest rates. Those types of things are moving the market. So keep an eye on those types of things. And remember, we do these, or try to do these videos twice a month. So the next one will be in about 2 weeks. We'll see how the market evolves from now until then, and hopefully everybody has a great weekend. Thank you for watching. If you do enjoy these videos, please like and subscribe, and we'll see you in a couple weeks.